What if the person you trusted with your whole heart was already planning a life without you? Claire never thought her marriage would begin to end on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The sky was pale gray over their quiet Ohio suburb. The air smelled like winter. She had driven back to Ethan's childhood home to drop off a folder he forgot, important contracts for a meeting later that day. She almost smiled as she walked up the steps. 3 years of marriage. 5 years together. She still believed in small acts of care. The front door was unlocked. That was normal. Margaret, Ethan's mother, liked fresh air in the mornings. Claire stepped inside, expecting silence. Instead, she heard laughter, not loud. Not wild. Just soft and close. She paused. Ethan's voice followed. Lower than usual. Gentle. Claire's heart tightened. She told herself she was overthinking. Maybe it was a client. Maybe a cousin. Maybe nothing, but something in the tone felt wrong. She moved quietly down the hallway. The dining room door was slightly open. Through the narrow gap, she saw Ethan sitting beside a woman she didn't recognize. Long brown hair. Nervous smile. Young, his hand rested over hers, not in comfort, not in greeting, but in intimacy. The world didn't shatter. There was no dramatic crash. It was stranger than that. Everything became very still. Claire felt as if she were watching a scene from far away, like it belonged to someone else. Ethan leaned closer to the woman. He said something Claire couldn't hear. The woman laughed again, softer this time. Claire stepped back. She didn't cry. She didn't storm in. She didn't throw the folder. She turned around and walked toward the front door, but before she could leave, she saw Margaret standing near the kitchen entrance. Watching her. Calm. Not shocked. Margaret's eyes moved to Claire's face, then toward the dining room, then back again. You heard, Margaret said quietly. It wasn't a question. Claire nodded once. Her throat felt tight, but her voice didn't shake. Yes. Margaret studied her for a long second. There was no panic in her expression. Only something that looked like tired understanding. Then she asked the question that would echo in Claire's mind long after this morning ended. Are you leaving now? Margaret asked softly, or will you take revenge? Claire blinked. Revenge? The word felt heavy. Out of place. She had never imagined herself in a story like this. She believed in loyalty. In second chances. In building a life slowly and honestly. She believed Ethan did too. Since when? Claire asked quietly. Margaret didn't pretend not to understand. A few months. A few months, Claire calculated without meaning to. That meant while she was redesigning the company website. While she was managing clients. While she was cooking dinner late at night because Ethan said he was working. A few months, she repeated. Margaret nodded. I hoped he would come to his senses. Claire almost laughed, but no sound came out. Footsteps approached. Ethan appeared in the hallway. His face changed instantly when he saw her. The color drained from it. His confidence disappeared. Claire, he said quickly. This isn't. She raised a hand slightly. Not angry. Just stopping him. Don't, she said. The other woman stepped into view behind him. She looked uncomfortable. Unsure. Claire noticed the small details, her polished nails, the expensive coat, the way she avoided eye contact. Claire didn't feel hatred toward her. Not yet. She felt something worse, replaceable. I was just leaving, Claire said calmly. Ethan moved forward. Please. Let me explain. Explain what? That it meant nothing? That it was complicated? That he was confused. Claire had heard those words before, from friends, from stories, from strangers online. She never thought they would belong to her. You don't need to, she replied. Ethan looked desperate now. It's not what you think. Claire met his eyes. It's exactly what I think. Margaret stepped aside, giving Claire space to reach the door. But before Claire opened it, Margaret spoke again. You deserve better than silence, Margaret said. You deserve to choose your next move. Claire's fingers tightened around the door handle. Choose. The word felt different from revenge. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Claire, please. Let's talk at home. Home, the place that suddenly felt fragile. Claire looked at him carefully. She searched his face for guilt, for regret, for something solid to hold on to. She found fear, not fear of losing her heart, fear of losing control. That realization cut deeper than anything else. "I loved you," she said quietly. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Claire stepped outside into the cold air. The door closed behind her with a soft click. No shouting. No chaos, just silence. She walked down the driveway slowly. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she forced herself to breathe evenly. In. Out. She reached her car and sat inside without starting it. Her reflection in the rearview mirror looked the same. Same brown eyes. Same steady expression, but something inside her had shifted. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Please don't do anything you'll regret. We can fix this. Fix. The word felt hollow. Another buzz. This time from Margaret. Whatever you decide, do it for yourself. Claire stared at the screen. Leave quietly, fight loudly, pretend nothing happened. She thought about the late nights she supported his business. The sacrifices. The plans for children. The way she defended him when people said he worked too much. She thought about the way he had looked at that woman, not guilty, certain. That certainty hurt more than betrayal. Claire started the engine. As she drove away, her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from awakening. A slow, steady fire burned beneath her calm surface. She wasn't sure yet what she would do, but she knew one thing clearly: she would not beg. Back at the house, Ethan stood in the hallway staring at the closed door. Margaret crossed her arms. You underestimated her, she said quietly. Ethan didn't respond. Outside, Claire reached the end of the street and stopped at a red light. The world around her moved normally. Cars passed. A dog walker crossed the road. Life continued, but for Claire, something had ended and something else had just begun. The light turned green. She pressed the gas pedal. She didn't know if she was driving toward freedom, confrontation, or something unexpected. All she knew was this: she was no longer the woman who walked into that house trusting blindly, and Ethan had no idea what that meant yet. Can heartbreak turn into power, or does it only leave scars? Claire did not go home. She drove straight to Maple and Ash, the small cafe downtown where she and Ethan had their first date. The place was warm, filled with the smell of coffee and fresh bread. Couples sat near the windows. Students typed on laptops. Life looked simple here. Normal. She chose a corner table and sat down, placing her phone face down. For a few seconds, she allowed herself to feel it, the sharp sting in her chest. Then she inhaled slowly and opened her laptop. 3 years ago, she had left her marketing job to help Ethan build his tech startup. She handled branding, social media, client meetings, and contracts. She worked late nights while Ethan chased investors. She believed they were building something together. But her name was not on the company. Not officially. That had been temporary, Ethan said. Just until things stabilize. Things had never stabilized. She logged into the company drive. Every campaign carried her touch. Every major client email came from her account. She began organizing files into folders on her desktop. Calm. Focused. No shaking hands now. Her phone buzzed again. Ethan. She ignored it. Another buzz. Margaret. Claire hesitated, then answered. I won't ask how you're feeling, Margaret said gently. I know. Claire stared at the cafe wall. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I thought he would end it. I thought he would remember who stood beside him from the start. Claire swallowed. He didn't. No, Margaret said. And now you need to decide who you are without him. Claire closed her eyes. Without him. The words felt strange. There's something you should know, Margaret continued. Investors respect you more than they respect Ethan. They trust you. That surprised her. They do? They call the house asking for you when he avoids them. Claire leaned back in her chair. She had noticed small signs before: investors requesting her presence in meetings, clients thanking her directly. Ethan always brushed it off. Team effort, he would say, then take the credit publicly. Margaret's voice softened. You built more than you realize. The call ended. Claire stared at her reflection in the dark laptop screen. Built more than you realized. A shadow fell across her table. She looked up. Daniel Harper stood there, coat in hand. Tall. Calm. Composed. He had been one of the early investors in Ethan's company. Sharp mind. Quiet confidence. I had a feeling you'd be here, he said gently. Claire raised an eyebrow. Do I look predictable? You look like someone who doesn't run from problems. He sat across from her without asking. Not in a rude way. In a familiar one. Did you know? She asked. Daniel nodded slowly. I suspected. I didn't want to believe it. She studied his face. There was no pity in it. Only concern. He's planning something bigger, Daniel added. Claire felt her stomach tighten. Bigger than an affair? Daniel leaned forward. He's been in talks to sell the company. Her mind raced. Sell? He never mentioned that. He wouldn't, Daniel replied calmly. Not when the deal depends on him appearing unattached. The words landed hard. Claire's thoughts moved quickly now. Sell the company. Align with the investor's family. Secure funding. Build influence and remove the wife who didn't fit the picture. It's business, she whispered, though it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Daniel's eyes held steady. Business built on someone else's work. Silence settled between them. Claire thought about the nights she stayed up rewriting proposals. The weekend she skipped family visits for marketing events. The way she defended Ethan when friends said he was distant. She opened her email. Daniel forwarded documents. Draft agreements. Tentative timelines. Meetings scheduled months ago. He had been planning this quietly while kissing her goodnight, while telling her everything was fine. Her chest tightened, but she didn't cry. Tears would come later. Right now, she needed clarity. What are my options? She asked. Daniel seemed prepared for that question. He pulled a folder from his bag and slid it across the table. She opened it. A detailed business plan. Her name printed at the top. Claire Bennett Marketing Group. Her breath caught. You've been watching me, she said softly. I've been watching your work, Daniel corrected. You carry that company. Without you, clients will reconsider. Claire turned pages quickly. Financial projections. Investor commitments. Office location suggestions. You'd back this? She asked. Yes. Why? Daniel paused. Because talent should not be hidden behind someone else's shadow. The cafe noise faded into the background. Her mind moved fast, connecting pieces. If she left now, Ethan would still have the sale. But if investors shifted their trust, the deal could collapse. Was that revenge, or justice? Her phone buzzed again. Ethan's name flashed across the screen. She let it ring. Daniel watched her carefully. This doesn't have to be about hurting him, he said. It can be about freeing yourself. Freedom, the word felt powerful. She closed the folder slowly. If I do this, there's no going back. Daniel nodded. You deserve forward. She almost smiled at that. Outside the cafe window, snow began to fall lightly. The city looked clean. Fresh. Claire felt something shift inside her. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her breathing. I won't beg, she said quietly. Daniel's voice softened. I know. She gathered her laptop and stood up. Set the meeting. For tomorrow morning, Daniel replied. That fast? Claire hesitated for only a second. Good, she said. As she stepped outside into the cold air, her phone vibrated again. This time, she answered. Claire, Ethan's voice rushed through the line. We need to talk. We will, she replied calmly. Please don't overreact. She almost laughed. You don't know me as well as you think. He sounded confused. What does that mean? It means, she said quietly, I'm done standing in the background. She ended the call before he could respond. Snowflakes landed on her coat as she walked toward her car. Her future was uncertain. Her marriage felt fragile. But for the first time in months, she felt awake, not reckless, not bitter. Awake. Tomorrow, investors would gather. Tomorrow, she would step into the room not as Ethan's wife, but as herself, and Ethan had no idea what was coming. Asterisk asterisk, how many lies can a heart carry before it stops believing in love? Morning light filled the cafe as Claire sat across from Daniel, her coffee untouched. Snow had melted into slush outside, but inside her thoughts were sharp and clear. Daniel had just finished explaining everything, and the weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was planning his escape. A clean one. One that erased her from the picture. He's been negotiating for months, Daniel said calmly. The buyer is connected to the woman you saw yesterday. Claire nodded slowly. Her mind raced, but her face stayed still. She remembered Ethan's late-night calls, his sudden interest in expensive suits, the way he avoided eye contact when she asked about the future. Every small doubt she once ignored now lined up perfectly. So I was never part of the plan, she said quietly. Daniel met her eyes. You were the foundation. He thought he could step away once the building stood. That hurt more than anger ever could. Claire wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, letting the warmth steady her. She didn't want to scream. She wanted to understand. Is the sale final? She asked. Not yet, Daniel replied. It depends on stability. Investors want certainty. Right now, you are that certainty. Claire breathed out slowly. Stability. She had been that for years. She just never realized it held power. Her phone buzzed. Ethan's name lit up the screen. She ignored it. The silence felt stronger than any argument. Daniel slid another document toward her. These are client letters. Drafts. If you choose to move forward, they'll follow you. She flipped through the pages. Names she recognized. Companies she had nurtured from the start. Messages filled with respect and trust. Not once did they mention Ethan alone. They mentioned the team. They mentioned her. I never wanted this kind of fight, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Sometimes survival looks like resistance. The meeting ended quietly. Claire stepped outside, the cold air brushing her face. She didn't go home right away. She needed space. Time to think, but by evening, she knew avoiding the house would only delay the truth. When she returned, the lights were on. Ethan sat on the couch, elbows on his knees. He stood up when he saw her. Thank God, he said. I was worried. She set her bag down slowly. You weren't worried yesterday. He flinched. That's not fair. Neither is lying, she replied calmly. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I can explain everything. Then explain the sale, Claire said. The color drained from his face. You know about that? Yes, she said simply. I know about the buyer. I know about the timing. I know why I no longer fit into your future. He looked away. It was just business, he muttered. Claire stepped closer. And what was I? He didn't answer. That silence crushed something fragile inside her. She realized then that he had already moved on in his mind. She was just a loose end. Margaret appeared in the doorway. She had been listening. Tell her the truth, Margaret said firmly. Ethan sighed. I didn't think it would go this far. Claire felt calm, almost distant. It always goes far when you build your life on someone else's work. He looked up, startled. What are you talking about? She met his eyes. You built your success on my effort. And now you're trying to leave with everything. His voice rose. I worked too. I never said you didn't, Claire replied. I said you didn't work alone. The room felt tense. Heavy. I loved you, she said softly. Ethan's shoulders slumped. I love you too. No, Claire replied gently. You loved what I gave you. That truth settled between them like a final wall. Margaret spoke again. She stood by you when no one believed in you. Ethan's voice shook. I made a mistake. Claire shook her head slowly. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. You made a plan. He took a step toward her. Please. Don't destroy everything. Claire felt a strange sadness then. Not for herself. For him. For the man who thought control meant safety. I'm not destroying anything, she said. I'm stepping out of the shadow. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel * tomorrow. Investors. 9 a.m. * she looked at the screen, then back at Ethan. You're meeting them tomorrow, she said. He nodded. Yes. So am I. Confusion crossed his face. What does that mean? It means you won't be alone in that room anymore. Margaret's eyes widened slightly. Ethan laughed nervously. Claire, don't be reckless. Reckless. The word sounded familiar. She walked toward the stairs, then stopped. You asked me yesterday to talk, she said without turning around. This is the conversation. She went upstairs and closed the bedroom door quietly. She didn't pack. She didn't cry. She sat on the edge of the bed and breathed. Tomorrow would decide everything. Downstairs, Ethan stood frozen, staring at the closed door. Margaret watched him with quiet disappointment. You underestimated her, she said. Ethan swallowed hard. The next morning, Claire woke before sunrise. She dressed carefully. Not to impress. To honor herself. As she stepped outside, the air felt crisp. Clean. Full of possibility. She didn't know how the meeting would end, but she knew this: she would not be invisible again. And when Ethan walked into that room later that morning, he would finally see the truth he had ignored. The woman he thought he could leave behind was no longer waiting. She was ready, and the choice he made months ago was about to face its consequence. **** Is the best revenge watching someone fall, or rising so high they can no longer reach you? The conference room overlooked downtown Columbus. Glass walls. Cold morning light. A long table waiting for decisions. Claire arrived first. She placed her folder neatly in front of her and sat at the head of the table. Her heart beat fast, but her face stayed calm. Today was not about anger. It was about truth. Daniel entered next, offering her a quiet nod. You ready? He asked. She breathed in slowly. Yes. Investors began to arrive one by one. Handshakes. Short greetings. Professional smiles. Claire noticed something new in their eyes: respect. Not sympathy. Not curiosity. Respect. Then Ethan walked in. He stopped mid-step when he saw her sitting there. What is this? He asked, forcing a small laugh. Claire did not stand. A meeting, she replied evenly. The investors exchanged looks. One of them, Mr. Reynolds, cleared his throat. Ethan, before we move forward with the acquisition discussion, there are concerns. Ethan's jaw tightened. Concerns about what? Daniel spoke calmly. Stability. Leadership. Continuity. Ethan frowned. We've been over this. Yes, Mr. Reynolds said, and we've reviewed performance metrics. Client retention is tied closely to Claire's involvement. The room grew still. Claire opened her folder and slid copies of reports across the table. These are the last 2 years of campaign data. Growth trends. Client feedback. Ethan looked at the papers, then at her. Why are you presenting this? Because I built it, she answered simply. The truth settled heavily in the room. Another investor leaned forward. If Claire steps away, we risk losing half our accounts. Ethan's confidence cracked. She's not stepping away. Claire finally met his eyes. I already have. Silence. Daniel continued. Claire has formed a new firm. Several clients have expressed interest in transitioning. Ethan's face went pale. You can't do that. I can, Claire said quietly. I never signed ownership away. My relationships are mine. The investors exchanged glances again. The mood shifted. Numbers mattered more than pride. Mr. Reynolds spoke carefully. Given these developments, we are reconsidering the acquisition under current leadership. Ethan's voice sharpened. You're backing out? We're adjusting, the investor corrected. We prefer stability. Claire felt no joy in his shock. Only clarity. The meeting ended quickly. Investors gathered their documents and left, some nodding politely at Claire as they passed. When the door closed, only Ethan, Claire, and Daniel remained. Ethan turned to her. "You blindsided me." Claire stood slowly. "You plan to replace me. That's not fair." Neither was silence, she replied. Daniel stepped aside, giving them space. Ethan's voice softened. "Claire, we can fix this. I'll call off the deal." She studied him carefully. For a second, she saw the man she once loved. The man who made her laugh in grocery store aisles. The man who held her hand during storms. But she also saw the ambition that had grown larger than their promises. "You didn't just betray me," she said gently. "You removed me." He shook his head. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you." She almost smiled. "That's the problem. You stopped thinking about me at all." He stepped closer. "I made a mistake." Claire's voice remained steady. "You made a decision. The difference mattered." Daniel cleared his throat softly. "Claire, we should go." She nodded. As she walked past Ethan, he reached for her hand. She stepped aside without anger. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she said. He stood there, unable to respond. Outside the building, the air felt lighter. Claire paused on the sidewalk. The city noise surrounded her, cars, footsteps, distant voices. Life continued. Daniel looked at her carefully. "How do you feel?" She thought for a moment. "Free." He smiled slightly. "That suits you." Over the next weeks, everything moved fast. Claire signed lease papers for a small office downtown. She hired 2 former colleagues who believed in her vision. Clients followed quietly, not out of loyalty to drama but to results. Her days filled with strategy meetings, creative sessions, and late-night planning. There were hard moments too. Nights when the house felt too quiet. Mornings when she reached for her phone out of habit. But the sadness did not control her. It passed like weather. Ethan called a few times. She answered once. "I ended it," he said. "With her?" Claire asked calmly. "Yes." She waited. "And I cancelled the sale," he added. Claire felt no triumph. "That's your choice. I want us to try again." She closed her eyes briefly. The old version of her might have said yes. Might have believed promises. "I wish you well," she said gently. "But I'm building something new." There was a long pause on the line. "You're serious?" he whispered. "Yes." She ended the call without anger. One evening, months later, Claire stood in her new office as the sun set over the city. Her team laughed in the conference room, celebrating a successful campaign launch. She watched them with quiet pride. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Dinner tonight? No business talk. Just us." She smiled. Their connection had grown slowly. Respect first. Trust next. No rush. No pressure. Just steady warmth. She typed back. Yes. "I'd like that." As she locked the office door, she glanced at her reflection in the glass. She looked stronger. Not hardened. Strong. Revenge had never truly been her goal. She didn't need to see Ethan fail. She needed to see herself rise. Back in the quiet suburb, Ethan sat alone in a house that felt too large. The deal had collapsed. The woman he once risked everything for had moved on when opportunity faded. Success felt empty without trust. Meanwhile, Claire stepped into the evening air with calm confidence. The city lights shimmered around her. She had lost a marriage, but she had found herself, and that was worth more than any deal ever could be.